Good morning. Myself Devajyoti Das from the product success team of ServiceNow. In today's session, we will cover total cost of ownership feature for hardware asset management. So this is just a safe harbor statement. Agenda will be what is total cost of ownership and its benefits. Then we will see what the TCO feature of ServiceNow has in offer for us. Then we will look into the drivers and then follow it up with the demo. Total cost of ownership is a way of quantifying the total cost of owning and maintaining hardware assets throughout its life cycle. It mainly includes the asset purchase cost, expense incurred during support and maintenance and disposal of the asset. TCO offers an accurate basis for determining the value, which means cost versus return on investment kind of comparison to the asset manager. Some of the benefits of having TCO will be one can track and analyze the incurred expenses across the asset hierarchy, benchmark asset cost against assets and asset model to compare performance. Create TCO reports and use predefined reports for better financial planning of your assets. Let's look into some features of total cost of ownership in HAM. You will get all TCO reports in one place, which will be basically in HAM Workspace. Then navigate to Asset Analytics and then you shall see the TCO reports. The asset manager can create custom TCO reports. They can also create benchmark TCO cost on an asset or the more specifically on the model of the asset, which adds another aspect to the reporting dimension of TCO. Now, using this benchmark cost, you can generate reports which will give you comparative study against asset with certain benchmark versus other assets. We shall see more on this during the demo. One can also configure the task rate cards and labor rates, which is more applicable to the fulfillers. This is more aligned to the HAM workflows like donor, refresh, disposal, reclamation, etc. It also provides a comprehensive view of total cost of ownership at the asset level with split of expenses. Also, it gives the provision in the hand of the fulfillers to record their working hours while fulfilling particular HAM request. In the consideration, one has to keep in mind that TCO is a feature that is getting available with Washington DC release of ServiceNow. Also, TCO is not calculated on bundle assets, pallets, individual consumables, excluded assets and assets that are part of the opted out model categories. Now, what are the factors that contributes to the TCO calculation of the asset? First being the cost of purchase, then support IMAC activities like install, move, add, changes. Generally, we have seen organizations carrying out these activities using an incident process. Then cost incurred on transfer, order fulfillment, disposal, donation, loaner, hardware, zero touch refresh, etc. hardware flows. Now let's move into the demo. We are now into my instance, which is on Washington release and currently viewing the hardware asset workspace. So in the workspace, there is this new icon that got enabled with TCO, and you could see this is how the interface looks like. This interface has all the needed metrics, which is also enabled with lazy loading, which means you can do on-demand loading of reports by clicking this button. Now, apart from this report, these are the set of reports where you can create custom reports as per your own TCO needs. Before we go into the explanation of this report, we will first look into an asset and we'll see where is that asset sitting with respect to current TCO. Let's take this asset and asset, and here I am searching the asset, and this is my asset. So you could see in the workspace, this icon has been enabled which says asset TCO, and this icon gives you breakup of the asset TCO at the current state at individual asset level. Please be informed, as a part of the asset TCO functionality, there are few fields that has been enabled in the asset table. One is asset TCO, which is a calculated value. Then there is the TCO benchmark cost and TCO benchmark threshold. These two fields are derived from the model field of the asset. So just going into the model from the platform, here you can see this two field has been enabled, and that is where the asset manager can fill in the TCO benchmark cost, which will then automatically calculate the threshold value. Threshold value is 75% of TCO benchmark cost, and this one is controlled by a property. So we can get into the property table, and this is the property which is asset TCO benchmark threshold percentage, which is set to 75%. The next part of TCO is setting up the task rate card and labor rate card. Remember, out of the box, ServiceNow already loads all the relevant task rate card for all the needed HAM workflows. So we just need to group it by table, and we could see currently task rate card is set up for transfer order, incidents, contract renewal, reclamation, RMA. So we have seen how this asset TCO is looking like, which is completely based on the cost of the asset. Now let's see how the other maintenance task impacts this asset TCO. So for that, I'm going to the asset operation, and let's execute the asset reclamation case. So for that, we just need to validate what all the reclamation tasks we need to measure. We have already set up these values, and let's open task reclamation shipment rate card. Just to inform you, you have active ensures this task rate card is getting considered for TCO calculation. Then use time work is the setting which tells the engine to consider labor rate card for this type of task, provided a labor rate card is there or not. If it is not there, it will take the default labor rate. If we uncheck this field, then system is looking for a flat rate which it wants to apply irrespective of user's labor rate card is there or not. Since this configuration is not set for using the labor rate card, it will always use the flat rate. So let's see the other task rate. Same here. Let's set up not to use this labor rate card, but rather let's use the flat rate. Say it's 50 GBP and save it. Now we have two task rate card, one which will use labor rate card, another will measure the activity with a flat rate. Then on the TCO configuration section, labor rate card is there where we need to define the labor rate card. I have already created this development rate card where you could see this much GBP is mentioned, which is basically hourly rate. And the condition we have set up here is the fulfiller should be from Paradise, Richmond, London. At the same time, I have configured Amos Linen from the same location, who will be working as a fulfiller in this demo. Let's go to the service catalog, raise an asset reclamation request. And reclaim asset. And this is for Fabian. Okay, and he has this Apple iPad that we will be reclaiming. And reclaim date, let's say tomorrow. Let's use the ship and put a comment and submit. So this asset reclamation request has been created. Let's go into fulfiller's view. Amos, who is basically here, I already logged as Amos in this new browser. Amos will do his regular activity, which is asset task, and we are talking about reclamation task. So this one is the task that got created. Let's open it. Now this is the task for shipping asset. We'll quickly go into the other view and validate the task. I'm again in the task rate card. It is about reclamation shipment rate card, but then this condition defines which task it will pick. So I am giving a condition here is task name should be schedule shipment. Now right now the expense rate is, this is a record for the older execution, not for the current execution. So let's go back into Amos view and complete this task. So task name is schedule shipment, and Amos will start the work. Here one need to pay attention of this two button. Start time has been introduced, which will basically ensure ham engine automatically captures the time this ticket is open for, and Amos does not need to add any effort explicitly on this task. He can start the timer, then he can continue working. He can pause as well and then resume as well. At the same time, if Amos need to add time explicitly, he has to click record time and copy it here. Say 2 hours or say 5 hours. Now let's add a shipping carrier, and let's say some tracking number, and let's close it and save it. Ship date I have missed, so I have to put it again and save it. Now the task is closed. Let's go back to the asset task and refresh. Now the receive asset task got generated. So let's fulfill this task as well. So work in progress, start work. And this time, let's not start the timer, rather record the time. And once we did that, time worked, we'll have an entry there. Going back to the details, asset received, and say close the task. It has been reclaimed and close the task. Now both the tasks are closed for which we have defined task rate card. So let's go back to the task rate card. Here, this is for the schedule shipment condition, and we told the system to apply labor rate card by checking it on. So let's see and refresh. This one got created due to this request, and you could see it has taken labor rate. Now going back to the other task rate, this one is for receive asset, and in the expense, this is the recent record or expense that got created, and it has taken a flat rate, considering we have mentioned flat rate to be considered, and have accounted the expense here. Now let's go back to the asset and see how this maintenance activity has impacted the asset TCO of the asset. So we have our asset here, which is this one, opening it, and I need to open it again. And now you could see those expenses has been added as labor here. At the same time, we could see the asset TCO has increased. Now it is increased so far that it has breached the benchmark. So this data gets calculated dynamically when you are entering expenses against those support activities. Now, going back to the reporting section, which is asset analytics, we could see this report. We just need to refresh the report. Here, 5, the count has increased, and here you could see the entry, which is this one, being captured as asset that has reached the benchmark TCO. Now let's look into the metric that this total cost of ownership portal has given us. First is the reached benchmark TCO, which, as the name suggests, it contains asset which has crossed the benchmark. Approaching benchmark TCO shows the records or the assets which has already gone above 75% usage of its benchmark, which basically means this asset currently has an asset TCO of this much pound, whereas its benchmark is this. So you could see it is more than 75% threshold of the actual benchmark. Capital planning houses all the assets which are not retired and have their asset life cycle of more than 60 days. Same way, there is top 10 model with highest average TCO. It gives you the average of top 10 model wise TCO. Asset risk benchmark cost by category. So self-explanatory based on the model category. This metric is devised. Asset expense distribution. This is based on expense categories that has been introduced for TCO supporting in the expense table. So you could see this expense category, which is configuration, is getting accounted for this particular report, and we have labor, purchase part, contract, and many more expense category available as part of TCO. Same way, there is this monthly asset expense distribution, again based on expense category. Now let's look into another interesting feature of HAM TCO, which is comparative reports, where the manager or user can create custom TCO report as per his needs. Let's see what this module or this report has. So we do have this report type field which has two options. One is TCO comparison. If you want to compare the asset TCO data with another asset, there is also TCO versus benchmark, where the current TCO will be compared or plotted against the benchmark model that we will be selecting. Also, there is total cost type, also have two options. The actual TCO, basically it will use the actual current asset TCO rate to plot the chart. Projected TCO is, again, it will consider the data of the entire life of the asset while plotting the chart. As far as the charts are concerned, TCO comparison is a bar chart. TCO versus benchmark is a gauge, or you could say semi-donut chart with a comparative view. Then there is real-time report. Real-time report is mostly system will query to the data on the fly, but then if you switch it off, it will then necessitate a scheduled job to query those data and make it available, which is called offline report. This real-time report should be switched off when the data you are querying is huge. Let's look into the different reports that I have already created. Location wise comparison, let's get, as well as this one. Both the reports are created to demonstrate both the different report types. Location wise comparison, the report type we have chosen is TCO comparison, which basically, you will be comparing against the asset TCO on actual TCO cost, and that's a real-time report. Remember, whenever you are creating a comparative report, it needs the report source from where actually the data will be queried. I have already kept a few report sources ready. Let's look into one of them. I'm telling the engine to query assets which are based on location, where the state is HE, which is basically Germany in my case, and I have got 77 records there. These are all those assets. Please be informed, for TCO, actual TCO type of report, you can give maximum of 4 report sources. Let's go ahead and create another report source, and then we will see how the report looks like. I will use Canada, and let's set up the condition. We could see this many matches there. Let's save it. And now I have 4 report sources. Going back, this is my configuration. I am also asking the engine to stage those reports against this benchmark model. You click the view report and we should see the bar chart. Here you go. This is where our benchmark model report is stationed, and the rest of my location wise asset TCO is projected here. You could see these are all expense category that we have discussed in previous part of the video, and we can leverage the switching on off function of this legend to understand the various detail of this average cost. Now let's shift to the other type of report, which is the TCO versus benchmark report type. Now in this report, I have used the TCO versus benchmark type of report. Here you need to mention a benchmark because that's mandatory, and I'm comparing against the actual TCO. So in the report source, please be informed that only one report source you can attach against this type of report. You could see I have kept the condition directly on an asset. So I want to compare the benchmark cost, or how the benchmark cost or TCO is performing against the TCO of this asset. So let's view the report, and you could see how this semi donut kind of report has been projected with comparison study. Here the top layer designates the data from the benchmark model. So the benchmark model has benchmark TCO set up at 250, and this is the 75% of 250. And you could also see this data is the data or the benchmark data of the actual asset, which is this asset. And now you could see how it is performing. So basically 250 being the benchmark cost of my model which I need to compare, and this asset has already passed the benchmark cost by this amount. So that's how you can create report to analyze performance of an asset against another asset. With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thank you.